and welcome to our 5 minutes with Ekaterina war vlog about Dnipro, the central Ukraine. We haven't seen each other for 3 weeks and probably you're wondering what happened within this time, and I'm sure you're reading the news or watching something and you know that there are a lot of things going on and a lot of things are going on politically, and my friends are asking me what's happening on the ground, so let's try briefly outline all these events. Probably the biggest good thing that happened is so-called Operation Spiderweb, and this Spiderweb operation is the huge proud of all Ukrainians. And if you saw our social media immediately after it happened, everybody was uplifted, everybody was super excited, everybody was praising the services, the special services, because it is the service of internal security of Ukraine who was conducting this operation. And the next day they were able to bring the explosive to the Kerch Bridge, and this is something very symbolic because the Kerch Bridge is a symbol of occupation of the Crimea, so all Ukrainians want to destroy it badly. And also the Spiderweb operation itself consisted of a number of drones attacking Russian military bases, and especially for us was important the attack on Alenia. Alenia is the northern air base, and every time when we hear that there is a missile directed on your city, every time there is an explosion in Dnipro itself, before this you will read the news that the planes take off from Alenia. So specifically Alenia base, it was very symbolic, and thankfully there were planes that were destroyed, and that means that if you destroy the planes, there will be less chances that they can throw the rockets. Regretfully, not all the planes, not all the jets were destroyed, and we had the bombings, and I'll tell you in a moment about it, but a lot of my friends, almost everybody is asking what retaliation will be, what Russia is going to do, and something along this line, and that's very important to understand that this is the war. And if you think about it as about the war, both parties are conducting their military operations. It was our military operation, and Russia is conducting their military operations that they plan. For example, Spiderweb was planned for over a year and a half, and there is a lot of preparation happening. The same with the enemy, the same with Russians. They have a lot of preparation, a lot of things are happening, and everybody understands that whatever they are doing was planned 6 months before or 1 year before. There is no such a thing as retaliation, because we are not talking about the insurgent war in which the big empire or big hegemony is trying to suppress insurgents and trying to do something. We are talking about two countries, two big countries, and when we are talking about two big countries, there is no such a thing as what they will do in retaliation. So it's very strange to hear from President of America says that there will be the answer, and the answer will be nasty or something along this line, because it's a war, and everything that Russians could do, they already done or already planned. Because we had massive bombings, we had a bombing of the hospitals, we had the bombing of the children's hospital, we had the terror of population, we had blackouts, huge attacks on the infrastructure, and the land campaign, the frontline campaign is not stopping. It didn't stop even for a single day within this period of time after we were talking about this so-called Victory Day for Russians, and the Second World War Commemoration Day. There were like talks that we need to stop for 1 day, and there were some stops. There was like a little bit less tension in the front line, but the military actions were still ongoing. So we didn't have a single day of break of the ceasefire, and the Russians cannot resume the military operations because they have never stopped them. Russians cannot resume bombing because they haven't stopped them, and Russians cannot assassinate, for example, Zelensky or anyone on the top of Ukrainian army, because if they could, they would. So that's the main takeaway, and when you're thinking, oh, what retaliation is going to look like, it's going to look like we see all the time. So there will be more bombings of civilians, and that's exactly what we see. The intelligence says, and if it's on the news, it's not intelligence anymore, but according to our services, they say that Russians have capacity of sending 500 drones, Shahed, Iranian Russians produced ones in Ukraine simultaneously. So they are increasing their drones production, and that happened independently from Spiderweb. It happened within months already, and regardless of what we would do, they would increase attacks on Ukraine, on our infrastructure, and on our people. And that's exactly again what we're seeing. Yesterday night, not today, not tonight, but yesterday night, there was a huge attack on Dnipro, and people didn't sleep, nobody slept here, and everybody's very agitated. My friends were sending me in real time this information about the attacks. I myself was traveling, I was on the train going back home, and the train infrastructure was also damaged, so the trains were set around the rail, and because the rail was destroyed, and the schedule, we arrived on schedule, by the way, the train wasn't late, but again, it's because of the huge effort of the rescue services, the huge effort of the reparation services trying to restore normality as soon as possible. So yesterday we've seen the bombing of civilians in Dnipro. It was combined attack by rocket and drones. The day before yesterday we saw the very tragic bombing in Kharkiv. Russians literally hit the residential building, high-raised residential building. It was a direct hit, and it's heartbreaking to see how the house is burning. Basically, this is the flats, and I live in the same house. I'm now sitting in the same house, so it's very difficult to see this footage and trying to limit myself from the news. Maybe I told you already, but I'm only consuming the necessary amount of information, and even though I see it on Facebook, I see it, some footage on Telegram, and I talk to people, so that's devastating. The bombings are not stopping. And again, it's not connected to anything Ukraine is doing. It's not connected to so-called negotiations in Istanbul, because the whole idea of these negotiations is to prolong the time that West is taking on thinking. What Russians don't want is that West will start giving us enough weapons, because they started the summer campaign. The summer campaign usually lasts from May to October. And during the summer campaign, Russians are hoping to gain a lot of territories. That's why they play this negotiation game, in order to distract people, in order to distract, first of all, NATO allies, and to say that, oh wait, don't send anything to Ukraine, maybe there will be peace, don't increase your military production, maybe there will be peace. And by this distraction, they are hoping that this delay in the weapons, delay in supply of the weapons to Ukraine, it will cause the situation when Russians will gain on the battlefield just because we don't have enough weapons to defend ourselves. That's exactly what's happening. Tragically, Russians were able to occupy the parts of Sumy region. A very dangerous situation is in Kharkiv. It's stable in a bad way, because in Kharkiv they didn't stop the attempts to invade more and more land. It's very dangerous in the Zaporizhia region. Again, it's more or less stable, but dangerous. They are pressing and pressing and pressing, taking meter after meter. It's not fast, but they are moving inwards. They're moving and invading more and more land. So we have less and less positions there. And the most terrifying for me situation, and the most dangerous situation, is of course near Dnipro region. Russians are not in our region yet, but the distance is very small. The distance they need to cover is very small, so we are very worried. And they started to hit with small range missiles, with short distance range missiles, the villages that they have never had, they have never were able to bomb. And I have a student whose grandmother was living there, and she had to relocate to Dnipro because it's not safe anymore. And usually in summer, when there is summer holidays, they go there for the summer, for the whole holidays, and he spends this time in the village. And he says he cannot visit there because it's dangerous, it's not safe anymore. There are constant shellings, and the front line is approaching and approaching. So that makes me very anxious. I live on the left bank, and the first neighborhood, or maybe not the first, but the second neighborhood that will be affected, it might be my neighborhood. That's why I do hope that Western allies, I do hope that Europe, at least if not the United States, but the European countries will supply the weapons, will supply it timely, because otherwise the front line might get very close to the city, to Dnipro itself, and I hope Russians won't be able to capture Dnipro, at least not this year, not after the summer campaign. But the more we wait, the more West is indecisive, the worse situation becomes. And after the bombing yesterday, there were rumors that we wouldn't have electricity, that there will be blackouts. In the place where I live, the electricity was not stable. We had cuts. It was like turning on, off, but it's more like because of the current. It wasn't because of blackout itself, but the substation was not stable. For example, in my mom's place, everything was stable. She had the electricity, so and near the bombing itself, in the neighborhood where there was the bombing, they obviously didn't have the electricity for the reasons that the wires were hit nearby, and it was a situation on the ground. So more or less stable situation with the electricity, but it hugely depends on the bombings. As for supplies, you can buy everything. The prices are growing and growing and growing for everything again. It's very shocking how fast it happens, and people can afford less and less, regretfully. But businesses are working, so you still can buy everything, especially if you have some income, if you work online, or if you work in IT, or if you have the stable job, so then you are fine. But if you have just normal job, it's more and more difficult to support yourself. And that's basically it. So the front line is bad, the situation with food is stable, the prices are growing, the unemployment is growing, and the huge relief and very good news, it was this Federal operation. It really shows the capacity of Ukrainians to act independently. It shows the capacity to fight even when the partners, the allies, are giving up on us, even when we are pressed in these negotiations in Istanbul. And that's something that gives hope that our Western alliance will keep supporting us, and we will be able to win sooner rather than later, because otherwise, if Russians see that they are not stopped, they will start invading Baltic states. More and more people in Europe are talking about it. Germany sent 5,000 troops to Lithuania, constantly with the families, so Germans are now dislocated there, waiting for the Russians to attack. And of course, if we are not stopping Russians here, they will attack elsewhere, because they will think of themselves as they are unstoppable. That's not true. Ukrainians show that it's not true. We show that they are weak, that there are weaknesses that we can exploit and must exploit. So mentally, they would not increase their military preparedness, and they wouldn't have enough time to increase their military capacity beyond these 500 drones a day that they already have. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your help. Thank you for your support. Please do talk to your friends about Ukraine. Don't let other news just swipe it out and to forget, because what happens in Ukraine relates to all Europe. It influences hugely the situation abroad, and also because we need it. We do need your help. We do need your support. We do need to raise the awareness about what is happening here. So thank you very much for watching, thank you for your time, and I hope to see you very soon under better circumstances. Goodbye for now.